don't think I'm an asshole, but that's just the way I'm living.
I don't know, she got a knife to her throat, so that explains.
Nah, a lot of kids that went to my university used to get like mugged all the time.
I'm a site coordinator at Brooklyn Generation High School, so I organize our programs for kids. There's a lot more that we do at school than that, but Kelly told me when I first started, I was like, what do you do here? She's like, you walk in, you see people cutting papers, you cut papers, you see people like running down the hall, you run after them to see what's going on. So that's really what you do at school. That's basically what we offer. So I've never done this before. So I'm a little bit nervous, but when Kelly told me to write about death, I thought a lot, and what resonated with me was my grandma. She died last summer during Ramadan, and I wanted to share that story. Unlike the rest of my family, I was born in Boston, Massachusetts on December 2nd, 1988. My father was in Boston pursuing his PhD in philosophy at Boston College, and he brought our family there until I was 4 years old, when we moved to Malaysia, where he went on to teach philosophy at University of Kuala Lumpur. Then when I turned the age of 7, my parents let me know that we would be moving back to Palestine, and this was very exciting news to me. Our family had a house there. My aunts, uncles, cousins, and grandparents all lived in the same neighborhood, and this was typical for families in the region. In fact, most of us lived close to one another, wall to wall, on units on top of each other, and this created an unusual landscape to see. There were many strange ways that the infrastructure appeared, since Palestinian people had to often build their homes illegally in Jerusalem. I remember all these dwellings were almost built during the Jewish holidays, because that was a time that the municipality suspended government activities, and this was the time to build, since no one would receive a fine at this juncture. In many ways, the development virtually looked like a refugee camp, albeit a beautiful one. One perk of living where we did was that we could see the legendary Dome of the Rock, the third holiest site for all Muslims, from right outside our window. Aesthetically, you could always see its shiny golden glint as the metallic dome laid atop a mountain, and from all around, people could hear the call to prayer, or adhan, from that location. As Muslims, we were required by our faith to pray 5 times a day, and mosques around town would always announce these points throughout the day, so that these prayers were not missed or forgotten by the devotees nearby. Right on top of our small flat is where my grandparents lived. The entrance to their home was located on the street level, and we had to pass by their house whenever we left ours. My father would instruct me with emphasis that we had to visit our grandparents every day, no matter what, on our way outside into the city if possible, and without fail on our way back home. My grandmother, Siti Aminah. So Aminah in Arabic, there's like different pronunciations. I was brought up and I told by the pronunciation of my name is Aminah, and she was Aminah. So I always emphasize that it's Aminah and not Aminah. It's really the same, but I always like refuse to be called Aminah, and it's Aminah. But it's the same. So Siti Aminah. Where am I? I lost my spot. Sorry, guys. Okay, yeah, so my grandmother Siti Aminah and my grandfather Sidi Mahmoud were well-respected members of our town. Both were from the Abu Sufyan family, of which I share my last name, and this family is rooted in the town of Silwan. Siti loved her 7 kids, but unabashedly favored her eldest child, my dad, Mustafa. By extension, that same preferential love was also extended to Mustafa's 4 children, Mahmoud, Rala, my younger brother Muhammad, and myself. Even amongst the 30 cousins I have, we were the favorite amongst the tribe. I remember how she always recalled our birthdays, fed us ceaselessly, and even when she was battling liver cancer, she would get up and attempt to make us tea. I remember about my grandparents is how they would interact with us, their traditions, and how they would soothe us. They always used to sing this old Egyptian song called Aminah, which was my nickname growing up. She was big Amun and I was little Aminah. I was always aware of the things that she used to do. My grandmother used to cook all the time. She expected us to devour everything on the table she had put out. I really, really disliked meat. So I would always sneak my meat on my dad's plate without her noticing. And sometimes she would catch me and tell me, "You'll never grow. You're skinny. You'll never get married." But yeah, it's okay. She's right. I'm not married. In many ways, she supported us, gave us money to buy things we needed or wanted, and she always had stashes of candy hidden everywhere because she loved making us happy. In general, her concern for other people made her a spectacular inspiration to everyone who encountered her. Not uncommon for the traditions during her youth, she married my grandfather when she was 16. She also faced much adversity as she had several miscarriages and even had a child named Batty who died before my dad was born. She did everything on her own while my grandfather was away in Saudi Arabia working. And she was so strong that she even fled without my grandfather to Jordan on her own with her 7 kids during the infamous 1967 Naksa War. This journey was not for the faint-hearted. It was treacherous in nature as many refugees fleeing the war traveled on foot to Jericho and from there to Jordan. During this famous march, there were warplanes hovering around Jerusalem. There were people shot and left dead on the street. It was truly chaotic. Even after Israel finally decided to annex East Jerusalem, many people refused to return out of fear. Fortunately, my grandfather was also brave like my grandmother and did successfully return. When my grandmother was diagnosed with cancer, her sickness was not discussed in my family at any point. It almost became a taboo to talk about. It was standard protocol in our families to pretend that it didn't exist. This behavior of hiding weakness is embedded in the culture, and most people in the region will not discuss when someone is afflicted with cancer or other fatal diseases. At most, it is mentioned as a sickness. However, the word disease is one that is never used. I believe that the reason is because our society is extremely superstitious, and it's more of a cultural phenomenon rather than religious. In fact, this behavior makes me think of Harry Potter, how when you say Voldemort, he just like pops out. So that's the same thing. If you say cancer 3 times, you get it. So while she portrayed it to the outside world and our family as if she was in perfect health, only during the last 10 days of her life did she really complain of pain. I know that in that manner in which she carried herself, her public image and her sense of pride were very important to her. During her last 10 days alive, she kept at the local hospital, and all my aunts and uncles took turns sleeping by my grandmother's side. Everyone pitched in willingly in support. The experiences I've shared with you about my grandmother live with me every day in my heart, and her memory inspires me to be a great person and a supportive person, and someone that others can find comfort into. Thank you.